Hello friends, welcome to my creative workspace. Welcome to this little, hopefully creative corner of the internet. In these videos, I try and share what I'm up to in my own art making, in case it's helpful for you in your art making. This week, my creativity has felt very distracted and sort of pushed into stolen windows of time. Life has been really busy, there's been lots of things going on. I've got decorators, builders, scaffolding going up. It's just, normal life. And sometimes making art is a decision despite whatever else is going on in life. We don't always have the luxury of carefree lengths of time. And what I have found in my life is that often when things are difficult, things are hard, there's a lot going on, it's actually in those times that creativity is necessary, needed, and can help me navigate. For me, it often feels like creativity is walking myself home. I'm kind of coming back to myself through the process of making. And when I have a really kind of busy week or there's a lot going on in life, I tend to try and find creative exercises, outlets that are really low pressure, that are low stakes, that don't have to be significant or meaningful. The significance and meaning comes from the act of making. So this week I've made something really silly and I loved it. It's really a little bit ludicrous and I am not apologising for it. I made a little art book with little notes to myself. I've made collage, I've put little windows in it, I've done some drawing, some cutting and sticking, just a whole bunch of sort of silliness really. And it's kind of a pointless thing. It's not for a project, it's not for sale, it's not for anything that is necessarily leading somewhere. It is really just for the joy of making. And I make these little zines or one-page sketchbooks all the time, and I have done this right throughout the last 15 years, and I often come back to these sort of little art books when I am seeking and longing a bit of playfulness, something that doesn't have to mean very much, something that isn't important, but the important aspect is the doing, the fact that I'm actually spending some time creating. So I thought in this video I might just go through some of my old zines and just talk to you about them and show you a pile of them and show you how I've used them to invite in a little bit of playfulness and a little bit of fun.
So I've got a small kind of crate that lives underneath my desk, which is full of art journals, art books, little experiments, these little books that I've made over the years. I haven't kept all of them, but I've got a fair few.
So I just wanted to show you very quickly how I made this book. I've got a tutorial about exactly how to fold these zines and art books if you'd like to make your own. But the thing that's particular about this book is that it's got these sort of doors and windows in it, which peep through to what's on the other side. I made that by having and starting with a piece of paper that has paint on both sides. Fold the book together, and then when you cut a sort of door shape, what's on the back of the paper peeps through, and I like that sort of that contrast. So this page is just an offcut or a scrap. I often use up paint or paint over things I've abandoned, and I just wanted to show you how when you cut a simple 3 sides of a square or 3 sides of a rectangle, it then allows what's behind to peep through. And I decided in the construction of this book to glue my book together, which was the most complicated thing to do really. Normally if you make a book like this, you can just add glue over the whole back and glue it together. But obviously if you've cut little sort of windows and exposed bits, you don't want to have glue here.
So when I was gluing it, I had to be really sort of thoughtful and mindful about where the windows and doors were going to open and avoid glue on that section. So that's just something to think about. But obviously you don't have to glue it together. I just wanted to neaten it up a bit. And once you've glued your book, you can, of course, sort of cut the edges and make it look a little bit neater. But you really don't need to.
They are, for me, fun and playful, but they are also a way to reconnect to my creativity, a way to tune into what I find beautiful, a way to lower the stakes, a way to create for the joy and the sake of creating, with no thought that it has to lead somewhere important. Now, art is my career, so I have to make money and make art that is worthy of putting on a gallery wall or worthy of putting on a customer's wall. That is my career. But I also have to have spaces and times in my creative making where it's just for me and it's just for fun and it's just for the act of creating. And I think whether art is a hobby or a passion or a career, try and have spaces and places where our creativity can flourish without there having to be a productive end point. So here are a few from my crate that live under my desk, and they're quite a good sort of representation, cross-section of the kind of things I might do. This one was some very quick visual notes when I was out in nature. I think it was from my class, Nature and Nurture. This one is also a record of a walk, things I saw on my walk, things I enjoyed on my walk. This is some collage and playing around with different inks and paint. This is one I made when I picked something in my kitchen to be inspired by and look at the marks and the shapes, and I used a pineapple and a whole bunch of different materials. I drew a big pineapple and then I just added little pieces of collage and paint and colour. This is one that I drew, I think maybe not long after my mum died. I took some of her items and belongings and just drew a little drawing on each page. This I made from an ink and stick experiment and then added in, I think, a little bit of drawing. And this one is a real mixed media. It's got collage and paper and watercolour, just all sorts of marks and lines and pattern. And then this little one here was actually a sort of note-taking device. I thought about why I use a sketchbook, some notes about nature, some notes about different artists that I want to explore. So it's really just a way of gathering thoughts, gathering observations, recording things that I want to do more or less of in my art making. And then this one, I am looking at marks, mixing different materials. I'm using some iridescent watercolour paint, just looking at how things combine and mix. So I found this quote this week that I wanted to share with you because it's taken up space in my brain and I've been really thinking about it in relation to creativity. And it's a quote from George Eliot from the book Mill on the Floss, which was a book written in, 1860 or 1890. So this quote says, "We can never give up longing and wishing while we are thoroughly alive. There are certain things we feel to be beautiful and good, and we must hunger after them. There are certain things that we feel to be beautiful and good, and we must hunger after them." And it really struck me that this is how I feel about art making. There's a hunger, a longing, a searching for the good and the beautiful. Creating art is a sort of act of hope, isn't it? It's an act of connecting with ourselves, connecting with what we find beautiful, connecting with a sense of meaning. So when we make something, we're reaching for something. We are trying to connect with something, to find something, to invite something into our lives.
We don't make art because we've got it all figured out. We make because we're still curious, we're still wishing, we're still sort of reaching for something. And I think that's the whole thing, really. It's not about getting it right, it's about seeking and searching and seeing what happens and maybe, fulfilling that hunger. Really, the point is to make art, to see where it takes you and not for what you actually make.
So that brings us to the end of this short video. I hope it was in some way interesting and gave you something to think about in terms of your own creative life. It's always such a pleasure to chat to you. I really enjoy our catch-ups.